Hello and welcome to this week's review. This week I'm reviewing My Hero Academia Vigilantes, Day Tripping Down to Naniwa. I understand that I might have mispronounced that, but hey ho, I'm not here to pronounce things correctly. I'm just here to give you my thoughts and feelings on this particular episode of the manga. So with that said, let us get into the positives, seeing as we're still trying to keep this new format thing going. So into the positives, and I have to say that it's becoming increasingly clear to me that this whole volume is going to end up acting more of a palette cleanser arc than anything else. For anyone that doesn't quite understand what I mean by that, a palette cleanser arc is a storyline, however long that might be, which is designed to be a little bit more lighter and a little bit more fun compared to what has come before it, though of course fun might be the wrong language for it. Basically, you'd have a storyline which is rather dark, serious and depressing, and then you'd have something that's a little more lighter, brighter and a little bit more fun. How long that particular storyline ends up going on for can vary between different series, and how light and jovial it ultimately is, again, will vary from series to series. With My Hero Academia, you usually will have some big epic storyline where big nasty stuff is happening, and then you'd have a short, maybe 5 or 6 episode thing where our cast is doing something a little bit more, well, fun. And it gives the audience time to help process everything that they've just seen, and it stops them from feeling emotionally exhausted, as is something that honestly can happen with certain series, and that certainly feels the case here. Whilst the previous volume didn't feel like the most dark and depressing thing ever, it does feel like that we're now in a position where we're doing stuff that's a little bit more laid back. And, you know, it has to be said that the tone here definitely feels a lot more lighter and jovial than what we had around this time in the previous volume. Though with that said, it isn't overly comical. Whilst there is a strong vein of comedy running all the way through this one, it doesn't get to the point where it feels too farcical. Though with that said, the stakes overall feel a lot more lower in this particular storyline than the previous storyline, though of course that might well change in due course. Not to labour the point all that much, but you know, the whole situation with Knuckle Duster and his family really isn't present here at all. We might get a second look at that towards the end of this particular volume at the earliest, I feel, because at this point it feels like unfinished business that they have to address at some point. I think it's better off doing it sooner rather than later, but for the here and now, this is more about Pop, Step and Crawler and what's happening with them, more so than anything else. We'll soon see about how that goes, though more on the whole Pop, Step and Crawler thing later on. Ooh, teases. With this episode, we see Crawler unlocking a brand new power, a new superpower that's going to help shake things up, and it's just kind of shrugged off and treated as a little bit of a joke. So yeah, not only can he glide across the floor like a 20-something Roomba, he can now stick to surfaces like a gecko, kind of. It's more of a vacuum thing, but hey ho, great, fantastic, good. He's gained a new superpower, and it's just kind of treated as a little bit of a gag, which, okay, sure, I mean, the way that he learnt to do it is fun. Him missing the train in exactly the way that the dancer predicted that he would do is cute and fun, and him jumping onto the side of it and trying to hold on for dear life is kind of funny. It's a neat little sequence, short but sweet. Though, of course, there can and will be criticism against it, which is that for what is ultimately a rather useful power, it was kind of discovered in such a rather short series of events. It wasn't discovered through trial and error or some kind of great dramatic moment in his life. It was just something that was almost discovered entirely off screen, which, you know, on the one hand, it does feel like a little bit of a disappointment, bearing in mind that the previous power that he seemed to unlock was this big emotional crescendo moment for him, and this week it's just kind of happened almost entirely off screen. But you know, you could make the argument that we're moving into a little bit more of a character focused period, and as such having such an emphasis on power and superpowers and gaining new superpowers might get in the way of that. And you know, I will admit though that if we're being perfectly honest, this entire arc, palette cleanser or not, is probably going to end up in some kind of big fight anyway, so you know, just shoving this to one side, yeah, I don't know. I'm going to end up going around in circles if I talk about that a little bit too much. But I do feel that maybe there should have been a little bit more to this than just shrugging it off the way that they do. Maybe if this gets an anime, there can be a few more visual gags and him trying it out. Also, we do get rather briefly within the manga itself where there's just this moment where he says, "Hey, look, I can stick onto things," as he's clanging onto shop signs and stuff. Like, you could do a cute little gag where he's clinging onto what he thinks is the side of a shop, but it's actually a van, and it's just driving off with him. Like, that could be a neat little thing. Maybe they can do that, something along those lines. But hey, it's something that I'm sure will come into play later on. That might be the way that defeats the big bad of this particular arc, if there is one. The main thrust for this week's drama and this week's action is this big cattle call that Popstep has been invited to. And when I say cattle call, that's an older term in entertainment for an open casting thing. She's been invited to this event for wannabe local pop stars. It's played off as though it's going to be this big, epic, life-changing thing, though in truth it's probably something far smaller scale. Like, I know that Tiffany got her start playing shopping malls, but I really don't see how Popstep could go from singing the jingle to a supermarket at an event was designed to just celebrate a reopening to going on to becoming some kind of big international pop star. Like, it seems like a bit of a jump to me, but hey-ho, you never really know. To be fair, though, this kind of corporate idol thing might be more of a thing in Japan, where it really isn't the case here. Like, aside from the odd case here and there where you'll get a famous or formerly famous person singing a jingle, like when Jamal from Neverending Story sang the theme tune to that Spam advert from a few years back.
Spam up and get out the can. Spam up just to feed your man.
Like, aside from that, we don't really have anything quite like that, so okay, we'll see where all that goes, because the main thrust of this is that the reason why they're all here is because of drugs! It turns out that this Mascot event thing is a hotbed for drug dealing. Okay, sure. Like, you know that this stuff is going to end up tying into Trigger somehow, which I admit feels a little bit much. Like, if we're being blunt and we're being realistic about all this, yeah, I can totally get that an event like this would have drug taking as part of it. There would be people using illegal weight loss drugs, people taking uppers, stuff to keep them energetic and keep them smiley despite everything else, so they can be an entertaining presence. I get stuff like that, but this isn't going to be it. This isn't going to be just some kind of event where they're stopping some other fictional drug that in the grand scheme of things is kind of not much of a muchness. No, they're going to be stopping people taking Trigger because obviously, people that are trying to become mascots for a brand would take a drug that turns you into a monster. Like, it's such a silly thing. Like, why would they do that? Why would they take Trigger? Like, of all the... Because we all know what it does. They probably know what it does. They've probably heard of it. You take Trigger and you turn into a monster. What they're going to do? Go on to stage and go,
"Wah, you can get monster savings at the supermarket. Wah, 2 for 1 on beans."
Like, maybe the snappy crab lady has something to do with this. You know, given the animal theme of all the monsters. Or maybe, at the very least, she'll get jabbed by it and freak out and she has to be brought under control. Maybe. Like, it feels like they're setting her up to be some kind of rival to Popstep, at least for the here and now. So I could easily see a thing where she gets tricked into taking it by this delivery man guy that we've been seeing in the background here and there. Like, it's her and Popstep that are going up for this big gig thing, and Popstep gets selected over her. Then Crab Lady goes around the back, she's upset, she's crying, and the delivery man says, "Hey, I got something for you that'll help you become a real star." And then she takes the trigger and, oh no, she's a giant crab monster now. Oh no! Like, I could see something like that happening, really. That could easily be the case of things, though. We'll soon see. I mean, I can't get away with this, but it does feel like a kind of heavy-handed way to add an extra layer of drama into things. Like, this could quite easily have just been a fairly small stakes palette cleanser thing. This is, the whole thrust of this is whether or not Popstep is going to get that extra step in her career, and the relationship between Crawler and Popstep delivering as a result of that. Maybe she doesn't get that, so it means that Crawler has to be the kind of friend that she nearly needs in this kind of situation. Or she does get it, but it means that there's a chance that she might have to move away and stop being a vigilante. Then you've got the character drama between the two of them, because there are feelings between the two of them. That could have easily just been the be-all and end-all of this. We didn't need the potential for Trigger and crab monsters, but we'll soon see how all that goes. I generally like the idea in a weird kind of way, because it's just so bloody peculiar to do for something like this that I can't help but be intrigued. But on the other hand of things, I would be just perfectly fine with this whole pop idol thing of whether or not they're going to get through or not, but hey ho, we'll see where it goes. In this episode, we get our third of our cover stars here, the other cover stars being Crawler and Eraserhead. So now it's time for the debut of Fat Gum in the Vigilantes series. You can tell this is the past because his costume looks slightly different. He has extra arm protectors and knee protectors, which I suppose changes his design and breaks his silhouette slightly. Like, before he just looked like a swollen thumb with a face drawn on it. Now he looks like a swollen thumb with a face drawn on it that's ready for the street version, whatever video game series that they come from. I mean, I suppose it's neat in the here and now to just have him here. Though I'm gonna be honest, I've never really felt to myself, you know what, I want to know more about the backstory of Fat Gum. Like, they're a fun character for what they are. They work well as a mentor figure for Kirishiba in the main series, but I've never sat there and thought to myself, I want to see more of this guy. They've got a neat design, they look fun as a character, but in the here and now, I really don't understand why they're here. Maybe this is around the time that they got introduced in the main series, so you wanted the cross-promotion thing or whatever. Like, sure. With that said, I mean, they are such a side entity that I can't see them becoming an over welcome presence. Like, I can't see myself coming into this about 6 or 7 weeks down the line and thinking to myself, oh god, I really wish Fat Gum would just fuck off. You know, we're not going to be like 6 or 7 volumes in down the line, his main appearance in like every other volume. I can't see anything like that happening. So his presence in the here and now, it feels like just some like nice semi-decent world building, though there is still that part of me that really wishes that they could have just had an original character here, because I'll be honest, I don't know how long or not he's going to end up being in this series. So if it's just like a one-off cameo thing and it's just going to be for the next 3 episodes or so, sure. If it's more than that, it kind of feels like a case of, okay, shouldn't you have just done something original? But I think that's a debate and discussion for a whole different point, I feel. There's one thing that I really do like about this particular volume, though I will admit that it's going to sound like damning with faint praise, but I do like the fact it now feels as though things are finally starting to get focused. Like, the past 3 episodes, as much as I've enjoyed them, it doesn't really feel as though there's been much of a thrust to them. It's always felt as though there've been episodes in need of a broader storyline, and whilst I am, again, fine with the idea of doing a palette cleanser volume, where our cast of characters are just having little standalone adventures, or adventures that only take 2 or 3 episodes to complete, it always felt as though there should have been something more to just tie these all together, like some kind of framing device or some kind of connecting tissue to help them all stick together, and it feels as though we're now starting to get that with this whole thing about this mascot idol thing that Popstep's getting involved with. So on the one hand, I am thankful that we're getting here, but on the other hand, it does kind of annoy me that we're almost halfway through this volume, and it's only now that we're starting to get the overall storyline of all this. How it will all end up going, I really don't know. Like I say, it's this whole situation with Popstep and Crawler and this pop idol thing, it might only be something that lasts about 2 or 3 episodes. It might be the thing that lasts all the way to the end of the volume. It might well be something that the knock-on repercussions of it are felt into next volume. I kind of hope that isn't the case, because I think that the knock-on repercussions of the previous volume still haven't been properly explored yet, and have just been pushed to one side to such an almost comical degree, so we'll soon see. I mean, this does feel like it's going to be a self-contained thing. I can't see us gaining some kind of big major villain out of all of this. Maybe it'll be the proper debut of this delivery man character, but between the then and now, we'll soon see. Again, it does feel like damning with faint praise to say that, oh, we now finally have a storyline, but hey, it works for the here and now and it's good enough. With that said, however, let us get into the negatives, and I don't really know how to really describe this, so kind of go on a little bit of a journey with me, dear listener. Hold my hand as we try and focus our way through all of this. Right, so right now, the focus of the story going forward is going to be about Popstep and Crawler, plus some kind of revolving door of side characters who will fade in and out as and when they are needed. Maybe there'll be a character that we've seen before, getting a little bit more time to shine, a bit more insight into the backstory. Maybe a character that's just introduced for the sake of the volume, but it'll essentially be Popstep, Crawler, plus someone else as time goes by. Note that when I said this, I said Popstep and Crawler, not Crawler and Popstep. Because it feels like in the here and now, the focus is very much on Popstep over Crawler, and not the other way around. Popstep is increasingly feeling more like a main character over Crawler. Now, I don't have any issue with that because I think that Popstep is potentially an interesting character. I've always felt that she's lacked that certain rounding off to really make her into more of a compelling focus. That's not because I think that she's a bad character, but it always feels as though we're going to get into that moment that makes us really connect with her, and then nothing really happens. It just kind of gets stopped, or it gets stalled, or it ends prematurely. And it does feel as though this storyline that's coming up, regrettably, will end up ultimately going the same way as all of this. But particularly bearing in mind that, as I've said previously, this could quite easily have just been a pop idol thing with her trying to deal with becoming famous and then not doing so, or doing so, and the drama that comes with that. But now we're getting into all this stuff with the drugs and the trigger and what anything else that might be there, which is going to take the focus away from him or so slightly. For better or for worse, the focus of the rest of this series coming forward seems like it's going to be focused on both Popstep and Crawler, but it still feels as though the focus still isn't on Crawler anywhere near as much as it should be. Like, again, I would be perfectly fine with us just having a volume that is focused almost entirely around Popstep, with a side order of Crawler, so to speak, if it felt as though we were getting a genuine deep dive and look into her. But that doesn't feel as though what we're getting here. And Crawler's presence in the here and now doesn't feel like the presence of a character who is a friend of Popstep or potentially future lover of Popstep, but just kind of feels like he's here just for the sake of reminding people that he's the main character and that this should really be his story. And it goes, and this ends itself going back to that feeling that I had in the previous episode, or the previous review that I did, where I discussed how he feels like he's increasingly a passive presence within his own life story. I hope that when all this stuff with the drugs kicks off, that this will be discovered by him. That this will be something that he finds out about and he investigates, rather than this being yet another series of events that he just falls into the middle of and has to deal with. Because that itself feels like it almost goes against the whole idea of what this Vigilantes concept should be. That with Vigilantes, they're supposed to be people that go where heroes can't go or won't go. They get deep into the mud and the filth, and there ain't no music down there, and they all do it rather thanklessly. And Crawler just falls into that mud and filth and just tries to solve it in the moment. He isn't investigating things, he isn't discovering things, he isn't taking deep dives into things. He's just kind of there and has to deal with it in the moment. And I don't want to repeat myself too much from the previous volume, but I think that, if nothing else, that's something that he at least needs to do with this particular volume, with this particular story arc, because, again, sure, the focus can be on Popstep, with all this drug stuff in the way that might get in the way of things and undermine that, but sure, she can be the focus, but Crawler needs to do something else to make it feel as though he has a real presence in this show. That's what I think he really needs. Because whilst I don't mind, again, having a storyline focused around Popstep, I think that, A, it should genuinely be focused around her and not diving back and forth and finding some kind of hero bullshit to throw into it. But, you know, we'll see how it all ends up going. But it just kind of feels as though we're adding extra mechanics in something that doesn't need it. We're over-engineering things. But, hey-ho, we'll see where it all goes. As we now get into the overview itself, I think the episode itself was fun and has some great moments within it, but it does feel like some of these moments do need building out a little bit more and should have been built out a little bit more to really make them a lot more memorable and a lot more inspiring and exciting for what they should have been. And again, it feels as though Crawler needs to really do something more than just feel like he's just Popstep's minder. He needs to feel like he's more than just her bodyguard or her secretary. He needs to feel like there's actually more of a genuine connection between the two of them, which you do get hints at, but we don't really get much of it. It just feels like he's following her along because he needs to, because he's the main character, not because, oh, I can help out with this, oh, I know about this, I know where to go with this, here's my expertise, here's my knowledge. You know, we'll soon see where all that goes. With all that said and done, let's get into Comment Corner! It's time for Comment Corner! I don't know why that's sticking, but anyway, it's time for Comment Corner. I'm back once again like a renegade master. It is Big X1 who says, sorry to hear about the Views Thing Halls Variety Pack. For those of you that don't understand the reference, this is referring to what happened a couple of videos ago, where YouTube decided to just delete all the views from that particular video. around the time that I last saw it, when I recorded my previous video, it was at around 8 or 10, and then YouTube decided to delete all of them. I don't know why they did that, but they did that. And right now, I don't know if they restored those views, or if the video just grew back to where it should have been anyway. Either way, I'm not happy about it, but there's not a whole lot I can really do, because I'm a YouTube channel that only has about just over 100 subscribers. I don't have a lot of clout. With that said, however, we are very close to breaking 105 subscribers. If I beat that goal, then I will be doing a review of the second My Hero Academia movie, as that's the only one I haven't done yet. So with that in mind, be sure to leave a subscribe, like the video, leave a comment. It all helps and it all will make this very much better. And we're getting to the point in the video where words are escaping me. So with that said, I'll just say thank you all for listening and see you next time. Goodbye! Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Go on, it'll do me a power of good. Until next time, my friends, goodbye!